Hello, and welcome to our Meet the 2024 MS Evergreen Nominees presentation. The link to our slide deck will be available in Whova, or you can access it quickly by using this QR code. I am Jody Cruz, the teacher librarian at R.A. Long High School, chairperson for the Evergreen Teen Book Award, and host of this presentation. I say host because this year you are going to get to hear about our new nominees from some of the Evergreen Committee members themselves, rather than just from me. So buckle up and let's get to our agenda. Today we're going to go through the process our committee uses in selecting nominees. We'll talk about the nominees that are developmentally appropriate for middle school age teens and preteens. We'll discuss the voting process, as well as ways you can engage with the awards from your library, and we'll end with an opportunity for you to win a copy of one of the new evergreens from Permabound. As we move into a discussion of the process, it's worthwhile to talk about the history of the evergreens. The Evergreen Teen Book Award is overseen by the Washington Young Adult Review Group, a consortium of public and school librarians who review books and publish those reviews quarterly. The first Evergreen Teen Book Award was given to Orson Scott Card for Seventh Son in 1991. In 2020, our committee decided to go from one list of 10 nominees to two lists to ensure that librarians could curate a Reader's Choice Award that was developmentally appropriate for high school students and middle school students, respectively. Our winners that year were The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas for the high school list and Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds for the middle school list. In finding books, we are guided by several principles. We look for books that are or can be popular with teens, books that deserve to be promoted and celebrated. There's a general preference to include a nonfiction and graphic novel selection if a quality choice is available. And there's a general preference to balance genre as well as audience or reader appeal so that there should be at least two titles that will appeal to everyone. Even as I speak, our committee is already evaluating possible books for the 2025 cycle. From April until mid-September, we begin the process of soliciting nominations, which means we will gladly take any suggestions you might have for a title that meets our criteria and was published in 2022. In mid-September, we close the nominations so that our committee can focus on actively reading the nominees. Our committee members read with a preference for the middle school or high school list so that by mid-December, each subcommittee is able to whittle potentially hundreds of titles down to just 30 that everyone on that subcommittee will read in order to make the best choices for the final lists in early March. March winds up being a busy month because not only are we planning ahead for the new cycle, the voting window for teen readers opens on March 1st and closes on March 31st, so we can usually announce the new nominees as well as the winners in early April. So, without further ado, here are some of the members of the Evergreen Committee to help talk about the middle school nominees.
I'm sitting in the principal's office again. Hi, I'm Heidi Bush from the North Shore Middle School Library in Bothell, Washington, and that was the first sentence from Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This is the first book in a trilogy, and this is his debut novel. He's from South Carolina. This is all about a wonderful character named Amari. Her brother has been missing for 6 months. His name is Quentin. The police are trying to convince Amari and her mother that he fell in with the bad crowd, but Amari is not giving up easily. She soon discovers within the first 30 pages this ticking briefcase from her brother with an invitation to join the Supernatural, the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. And this is also known as a leadership camp that her same brother Quentin attended. So she is off on this magical journey. Um, and the book, it's just a page turner. Why I love it. The characters are so relatable. You will cheer for Amari. Obviously, she's an underdog. Um, she's in trouble in the principal's office in the first page. She has lots of bullies around her. Her mom is working. Gosh, her mom is so relatable and so lovable to me. She's working full time. She's trying to be there for Amari. She's also trying to keep food on the table. And her brother was just a love. He was a really good student. He was on a scholarship to go to this great academy that she's also going to. He also volunteered in a tutoring program. So, obviously, the second bullet, family relationships, are everything in this story. And they made me just so happy to read because this is a true, who cares what you have, right? That's materialistic as long as you have a great family relationship. This book is a perfect example of Black girl magic. So I read a review of Kirkus a long time ago that that described this book as such. And one of our students in the library walked up and said, "Do you have a book with Black girl magic?" And I said, "I think I do." And she affirmed that that was a perfect example of Amari just being just the quintessential Black girl magic book. There are so many plot twists and tension in this book. There are so many unreliable characters. Just throughout the entire book, you are wondering what's going to happen next. The magical world is super well developed and honestly pretty hilarious. There's an elevator that is named Whisper, but actually shouts. There's departments that deal with like creature control and undersea magic, and it's just so well developed. Lots of other people love it too. So it's gotten starred reviews from Booklist, Kirkus, and School Library Journal. It's won the ALSC Notable Children's Books in 2022, the YALSA Best Fiction for Young Adults in 2022, and a Project Lit, yay, Middle School Selection 2021-2022, a really cool book club that I'm actually a part of that started in Nashville, Tennessee. So shout out to all the wonderful organizations and students that love it. Some connections you can make to this book. Obviously, there's a ton of racial prejudice. Amari and her brother often felt and do feel like they're the only Black kids at the school. Even in a magical world, she still feels a lot of prejudice towards her because she's Black. Both Amari and her brother Quentin had school scholarships, which is something that I think would be interesting to explore with students and do some research with. And then private schools, of course, there's big connections there. The themes, yes, are family for sure, family first. You can see that Amari deeply, deeply loves her mother and her brother, and will do anything to find Quentin and does not give up on trying to find him throughout the whole book. Her mother is trying to make ends meet. It's very relatable for me, and I think a lot of students would find that as well. I think her mom's a nursing assistant, which my mom was as well. So throughout the whole book, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you're working really long shifts and doing the best you can." The second theme, I put these two together as a middle school librarian, bullies and friendship. I think Amari has this fascination idea that she will escape bullies and have all these friendships when she leaves the non magical world, which of course doesn't happen because this is magical realism. Amari's discovering self confidence, which is so believable because, right, actually, we're all doing it throughout our whole life. But as a middle school girl, she is definitely discovering self confidence and perseverance. Oh my goodness, this child, she is amazing. So she perseveres throughout so many different small problems as well as big problems like finding her brother. Thanks for listening to this book talk. I'm going to hand it off to the next nominee, which is Who the F Are You with Nancy Federick. Thanks for listening.
This is Nancy Federick. I'm the teacher librarian at Pacific Middle School. Well, well, well. Where are the drugs, Huda? This is the first line of the great graphic semi autobiographical memoir, Who the F Are You? As is spoken by Huda Fami's mother, it's a kind of running joke when Huda gets a low grade or doesn't make friends. Of course, Huda is not on drugs. She's just trying to figure out who she is and where she belongs, hence the title, a play on her name and the phrase. Huda has just moved to a new school in Dearborn, Michigan, and is one of the many hijab-wearing girls in her new high school. She's also one of 5 girls in a Muslim family of high expectations. She's smart, but she doesn't fit in with any of the high school cliques. She frequently talks to her conscience as she navigates Islamophobia, microaggressions, and her clueless friends. I love this book as it's very funny, it's very snarky. Her conversations with her conscience are insightful and they're really hysterical. High school situations are really relatable and it gives some insight into Muslim customs and traditions. It won the YALSA Great Graphic Novels for Teens Top 10 Award in 2023. And some points of connection for teachers and students are the Arab Muslim identity and the Islamophobia and microaggressions in the post 9/11 world. The themes coming of age, cultural identity, and self awareness.
Hi, my name is Sherry Ashlock, and I'm the librarian at Nelson Middle School in Renton, Washington. I stepped down into the pool. That's the opening line in the novel Starfish by Lisa Phipps. Starfish is appropriate for grades 5 through 8, and it's a realistic, heartfelt story. Ellie, age 11, is bullied every day about her weight by her siblings, classmates, and even her own mom. She has learned to survive by creating her fat girl rules. Life is terrifying at home due to her mom's threats of weight loss surgery and forced weigh ins. A glimmer of hope appears when she starts seeing a therapist, and a new kid, Catalina, moves in next door. Catalina's family envelops Ellie with love and understanding. Ellie treasures floating like a starfish in their swimming pool. That's where she feels truly free. Meanwhile, her mom's pressure and bullying never seems to end. How can Ellie learn to speak up for herself against her own mom, the person who should love her the most? I really loved this book because the novel in verse format really increases the emotional impact of our tween narrator. This story gives a voice to the impact of weight shaming and bullying at a young age. This is a topic not often addressed at this age level. And the ending is hopeful yet realistic. I wasn't the only one who loved this book. It received starred reviews from Booklist, Kirkus, and School Library Journal, as well as numerous other awards, such as being a Michael L. Prince Honor book for 2022, an ALSC Notable Children's Book, a YALSA Best Fiction for Young Adults book, a Charlotte Huck Award Honors book, and a Jane Addams Finalist book, all of those for 2022. And as you look across the map of the United States, you can see it's popular in numerous other states as well, including Oregon, Utah, Wyoming, Arizona, New Mexico, Hawaii, Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Whew. There is many points of inquiry and curriculum connections you can make with this story. such as bullying in schools, being fat in a weight conscious society, parents' responsibility for overweight children. And some of the themes in this story, the story of Starfish, include the power of friendship, learning to accept oneself, and building resilience to overcome challenges. My mother says, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached to my body. That's the opening line to Gordon Corman's book, Linked. Chokecherry Middle School in Colorado becomes infamous when someone paints a large swastika above the main stairway. Accusations are slung at many people. Who could have done this? Who is filled with such hate? As the principal begins a school-wide tolerance unit, everyone is horrified to find more swastikas showing up in different places connected to the school. Community members are reminded of KKK activity that happened there decades ago. Students turn to popular jock and jokester Link Rowley to solve this mystery. Link and his peers fight against this hate campaign by creating symbolic paper chains as a remembrance of the Holocaust. At the same time, Link learns that his family has Jewish heritage, so he ponders how that affects him and starts studying for his bar mitzvah. Readers will enjoy this gripping, realistic story told through the eyes of several main characters. Published by Scholastic Press, it's for grades 5 through 8. I really enjoyed Linked. It has a ripped from the headlines feel as it addresses a current societal problem, a hate crime. It shows middle schoolers how events from the past still impact life today. It has its unexpected plot twists, humor, and engaging characters keep it a fast-paced read. And this is a gripping mystery where solving the crime isn't as important as the journey the characters undertake. This book received a starred review from Booklist, and it received the Jane Addams Children's Book Award finalist for 2022, as well as the Lamplighter Book Awards nominee for 2022 to 2023, and the Sidney Taylor Middle Grade Honors Book Award for 2022. Other states where it's had a positive impact and awareness include Wyoming, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Rhode Island. For the novel Linked, there's curriculum connections you can make with the Holocaust, including Holocaust remembrance, hate crimes such as anti-Semitism, and the story deals with the themes of discrimination and prejudice, also family identity and heritage, and finally, decision making and consequences. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Good, and I am the librarian at McKnight Middle School in Renton, Washington. Ophelia Harrison jolted awake, her heart pounding with terror. Ireland, page 1. That is the first line of Ophi's Ghosts by Justina Ireland. Ophelia Harrison learned she can see ghosts the night her father was killed by a lynch mob. Ophi and her mother are no longer safe in 1920s Georgia. Like many Black families of the time, they flee to the north, hoping to find safety, opportunity, and a better life in Pittsburgh. Mama and Ophi find work as maids at Daffodil Manor, the home of a rich white family. Ophi must attend to mean old Mrs. Carruthers, but she often sneaks away to explore the mansion. Her gift of seeing haints, as her Aunt Rose calls spirits, introduces her to the hidden spirit world of Daffodil Manor. Ophi is both scared of and curious about the ghosts of the house. When one spirit in particular needs her help, Ophi's gift unravels dangerous secrets and spine-chilling mysteries the manor may not want revealed. Why I love this book. The prologue, you can see from the first line that it just sucks you right in. There's action right away. And not only that, but Justina Ireland really sets the scene for what 1920s Georgia, the reality of it is for Black people of the time. And also, Ophi's gift is revealed in this really clever way that you just aren't quite expecting. Um, in addition to that, Justina Ireland, weaves these really tough topics into the story. So she uses the ghosts and Ophi's interactions to communicate the horrors of slavery, Jim Crow, lynching, and just get the reader thinking about injustice and hardship and other topics that are sometimes really difficult to address. Here's a quote that I think speaks to that. Ghosts, it seemed, were like painful truths. You could ignore them, try to keep them secret, but sooner or later they were going to come out, for better or worse. I also really enjoyed how Justina Ireland would sprinkle in these little vignettes that would allow her to shift perspective from Ophi to some place in the story. So she does it frequently with Daffodil Manor is like a character who speaks to the reader. Also a trolley car, Pittsburgh, the rose garden behind her Aunt Rose's house. And it just does this thing where it kind of breaks the story up a little bit and offers new information that maybe Ophi wouldn't be privy to, but also helps the reader understand. It's just very clever. Um, and then finally, last but not least, it really is a creepy ghost story slash mystery. I mean, it has a genre bending thing where there's this historical piece too, but the ghosts are legitimately scary. But I think like for middle grade, for middle school, will be embraced as like just scary enough. And the reveal, there's this layered mystery as well because of the character that Ophi befriends. The reveal, I did not see the whole thing coming. So I think it's got some really good suspense in there. Who else loves it? Well, it is a starred book by Booklist, Bulletin for the Center for Children's Books, Hornbook Magazine. It's also a Junior Library Guild selection and has won some awards, including the Scott Odell Award for Historical Fiction. And you can see it's gotten some praise in the South and in Georgia where it took place. And then some points of inquiry. So I think teachers could potentially use this in a social studies class or in a language arts class, of course. Some connections they might make: the Great Migration, what it was like in the 1920s, specifically for African Americans, the domestic worker experience, think like the help. And I really enjoyed learning about Southern Black folklore through Ophi's interactions with Aunt Rose, specifically about the haints and the blue paint that was protection against the spirit world. And then, of course, the themes of social justice that I mentioned really woven seamlessly throughout, and generational trauma and family. So Ophi's interactions with all her relatives that she moves in with, her own grieving over her father and her relationship with her mom, the Carruthers family, the family household at the Daffodil Manor. All of that is, I think, great fodder for discussion, as well as Ophi's own personal growth throughout the story and her kind of denial of her gift or having conflict with her gift to really embracing her own gifts at the end of the story.
Hello, I'm Michaela Gunderson, teacher librarian at Rose Hill and Stella Scala Middle Schools. The first line from our next nominee is I Could See the Whole World from Kessler, page 3. This nominee, titled When the World Was Ours, is by Liz Kessler and is a middle grades book. This story is set during World War II, and it follows 3 stories of 3 kids, Leo, Elsa, and Max, who all take very different paths through World War II. They start out as friends before the Holocaust. Leo and Elsa are both Jewish, and Max's father is a high-ranking SS officer. So, as you can imagine, the 3 end up on very different paths. I love this story because it is based on a true story and it honors the author's Jewish heritage. It's told from 3 different viewpoints. One thing I found really interesting in this story is that since it starts at the very beginning of the Holocaust, you get to see how the atrocities of the Holocaust started with gradual changes in points of view. It has a hopeful spirit despite tackling very tough topics as well. This book received starred reviews from School Library Journal and Booklist. Other states that have appreciated the book are Texas, Oklahoma, Vermont, and Maine. There are several points of inquiry and further research for this book, the main one being World War II. I highly recommend this book to be paired with any historical research about World War II, as it shows 3 different paths that people might have taken to get through the Holocaust. It also shows the psychology behind how ordinary people got sucked into the Nazi regime. Max is not inherently a bad person, and it shows how he was led to become a Nazi through the Hitler Youth. There are strong themes of friendship and the power of human connection.
My name is Kat Chin, and I am the current librarian at Kamayakan Middle School. I have the privilege of sharing about our next Evergreen nominee that opens with the line, I have 2 lives. LaRocca, page 1. Red, White, and Whole by Rajani LaRocca is a middle grade novel in verse that is largely based on the author's own life experiences. LaRocca refers to this story as the book of her heart, and it is a story that will pull at your heartstrings. 8th grader Reha is the only child of parents who immigrated from India and have settled in a small Midwestern town. Reha constantly feels torn between 2 lives. Her weekday life, where she is one of the few brown faces in a sea of white at her private school, and her weekend life, where she spends time with her best friend Sunny and other members of their Indian American community. There's a pull between the high expectations of her parents with their traditional beliefs and between Reha's desire to just be a typical American teenager growing up in the 80s, able to attend school dances, be friends with boys, and wear purchased clothing of her choice rather than her mother's homemade dresses. There are numerous instances of microaggressions and blatant racism throughout the book, and the struggles of how to navigate such treatment are poignantly explored. The second half of the novel explores how Reha navigates yet another world, the one where her mother is gravely ill. It isn't all doom and gloom, though, as Reha's maternal aunt comes to visit from India in order to help the family, while Reha's mother, Poonam, undergoes chemotherapy and tries to heal. Reha also discovers that she has a family and community she never imagined as her classmates and teachers rally around to support her and her family. Why I love it? All the feels. This novel in verse is marvelously lyrical and has metaphors that spiral throughout. The reader will identify with the struggle to honor one's family while also making one's own way in the world. Being written in verse, this book is highly accessible and engaging, on also a quick read, though you'll be tempted to linger over all the figurative language and literary devices. This is a book that lends itself to rereading as there are multitudes within these pages. The 80s song references, Having been born in the 80s, I loved that songs of my childhood were represented throughout. And with the current popularity of Rickrolling and other 80s throwbacks, many readers will appreciate the nostalgia, even if they were born in the 21st century. Finally, Reha's exploration of self while straddling two worlds is highly relatable for any reader, regardless of one's family of origin. Reha's struggles are genuine, and the way she handles different situations is extremely authentic. Who else loves it? This is a starred book with Booklist. It has received the American Library Association's Notable Children's Book Award. It is a Newbery Honor Award winner and also a Walter Award Young Readers category winner. And from this map, you can see that numerous other states have honored this book. Some points of inquiry. Connections can be made to figurative language and poetry. This is a book that I will be highlighting and have displayed in the library during Poetry Month in April. As I noted earlier, the multiple types of figurative language woven throughout the story lend themselves beautifully to a language arts unit exploring poetry. The field of health and medicine is another connection, as Poonam is a phlebotomist who gets diagnosed with leukemia, and Reha wants to become a doctor, even though the sight of blood makes her queasy. The immigrant experience is explored throughout this book, from Reha having to serve as an interpreter for her English-speaking parents, to the lack of Reha's parents passing on their native languages to her, from the pull Reha feels to be a good and proper Indian daughter, to Reha's desire to be an American teenager, and everything in between. This is a book that everyone needs to read, as it has the ability to serve as both a mirror and a window. Finally, the theme of community runs throughout La Roca's debut middle grade novel. The community into which one is born and the communities that we create come together in this powerful story about how community can be found in unexpected places.
Hi, my name is Stacia Bell, and I'm the librarian at Madison Middle School in West Seattle. And our next nominee is Thanks a Lot Universe by Chad Lucas. And it starts with the sentences, shoot. Don't overthink, just shoot. Chad Lucas's debut novel is about 7th graders Brian and Ezra. Brian is socially anxious, at home, at school, and on the basketball court. He mostly keeps to himself. Ezra, on the other hand, is popular and friends with everyone on and off the basketball court. Basketball is the one thing Brian and Ezra have in common. They're really just friends on the basketball court until Brian's dad leaves home, apparently on the run from police, and his mom attempts suicide in response. After that, Brian and his younger brother find themselves in foster care, which causes Brian to start having panic attacks. Now, Ezra, he wants to reach out and be there for Brian, but he's afraid if he's too nice to Brian, people might find out that he has a secret crush on him, and he's not ready to talk about that with others yet. Now, when Brian and his brother run away from foster care, though, Ezra has no choice but to reach out to him and help him. Now, this book does deal with lots of heavy topics and portrays some harsh realities of foster care and of anxiety and mental health, but it is really balanced with laugh out loud and tender-hearted moments. And the risks that these two friends take to support each other and be vulnerable will ultimately totally fill you with hope. Now, as I mentioned, this book does deal with heavier topics like anxiety, suicide, foster care, but it does so both honestly and really delicately. So for that reason, I really think it's a perfect book for our students who are transitioning from middle grade to young adult literature. And I think it'll probably find its largest audience with 5th through 8th graders. So why do I love this book so much? Well, for starters, it focuses on mental health, and we need more books that normalize the conversation around mental health, and this is definitely one of them. I also love the LGBTQIA representation. Ezra, he's starting to explore his sexuality and figuring out how to share that with the people who are important in his life. And although he does have a crush on Brian, the story is really about their friendship. And I just really loved how Brian and Ezra's friendship developed throughout the book, the way they both took risks to open up to each other and be vulnerable. And really, I love seeing this vulnerability and honesty in friendships between boys. I think we need more of it in our literature. And then finally, the writing just had such a great balance of being both serious and lighthearted. Chad's writing was filled with humor that, if you've ever taught middle school, it's very reminiscent of some 13-year-olds you've probably met along the way. Now, it turns out I wasn't the only one who loved this book. It also received 2 starred reviews in both Kirkus and School Library Journal, and it received the Association for Library Services to Children, their a notable children's book for 2022. And finally, this would be an excellent book for both teachers and just families to start conversations around bullying. Like, what do you do when you're feeling like there's people in your life who are bullying you or people who are being bullied? Excellent book to talk about anxiety and any form of mental health. It'd be a great one to talk about like the foster care system. That might be a mirror book for some and a window book for others. And also just sexual identity, talking about the fact, exploring our own sexual identities and knowing that there are multiple different sexual identities with the people around us. Overall, though, a fantastic book. I loved it, and I hope you will too.
Hi, my name is Claire Elam, and I'm the middle school librarian at Hamlin Robinson School. This handwriting is utterly disgraceful. McNichol, page 1. That's how A Kind of Spark by L. McNichol opens. This is a book geared toward readers in grades 5 through 8, so solidly a middle grade read. And it's the story of Addie, who lives in Juniper, Scotland. She loves sharks, finding synonyms in her thesaurus. And when her class starts learning about how women were tried and executed as witches hundreds of years ago, she devotes herself to creating a memorial for these women. She's motivated to do this because she realizes these women died because they were seen as different. And Addie can completely relate because she is seen the same way because she's autistic. And everyone in her town has this expectation that she should be, quote unquote, normal. So this is a story that talks about Addie and her family. She has an older sister who's also autistic, and a new friendship that she cultivates with a girl named Audrey who has recently moved to Juniper. I love this book because the author is neurodivergent, so she brings expertise and wonderful sensitivity to the topic. The plot pacing is absolutely spot on. There are a lot of different things that happen in the book, but it's a pretty concise read, which is wonderful, making it really accessible to students. It also provides different perspectives about being autistic/autism spectrum disorder because we hear Addie's experience, and also we get to know a little bit more about her older sister Keaty and how autism shows up for her. I think Elle McNichol uses sensory language in a really fantastic way to help us feel how Addie feels in different times of the day. And through her friendship with Addie's friendship with Audrey, and also sort of battling this really unsupportive teacher she has, who, by the way, is the person who speaks the first line of the book, a lot of misconceptions about autism are also addressed. Like, how do autistic people feel things, and what's happening physically for them sometimes. So I think it just does an amazing job at sort of teaching all of us as readers and also being an entertaining and engaging story. The audiobook is fantastic. The narrator is Scottish, so that makes it even more special. I'm always on the lookout for that because my school serves students with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences, so I want to make sure that is a good audiobook, and this one definitely has one. It is celebrated all around. School Library Journal starred it. It won the Schneider Family Book Award, so it represents autism, and that's why it won that for 2022. In Scotland, it won the Waterstones Children's Book Prize, which is a huge deal. BBC also gave it its Blue Peter Award in 2021, and it was Blackwell's Book of the Year in the UK for 2021, kind of like Barnes and Noble Book of the Year. It's also celebrated in Utah, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, and of course, Washington. Some connections you could make. This is a book that's going to be adapted into a series by BBC with a new media group called 9 Story, where they're trying to promote underrepresented stories. You could, of course, study witch trials throughout history and around the world. Another fun thing could be to look at memorials. Maybe there's a local memorial that you could investigate. Maybe there's something that happened locally to you that deserves a memorial. And so, how might students go about creating a respectful memorial of an event? There's a book, Funny You Don't Look Autistic, A Comedian's Guide to Life on the Spectrum by Michael McCreary that could pair well with this book. He also has a really entertaining, concise, and educational TEDx talk. Some of the primary themes in this book are friendship, like accepting people for who they are. Also, self advocacy. Addie really has to learn how to advocate for herself as she's trying to advocate for these women of the past and their memory. This book also really looks at society because we're looking back at the time of these witch trials and sort of judging that unaccepting society at that time. But it also looks at Addie's present day society and therefore our society and the expectations that are often placed on neurodivergent individuals, and really helped me think about how much work it takes for neurodivergent people to make other people feel comfortable, and maybe that's not the way it should be. So this is a really a good in-depth analysis of that. I hope you enjoy this book as much as I did, and I think your students will love it.
Hello, my name is Amber Peterson. I'm the teacher librarian at the International Community School, a choice school in the Lake Washington School District in Kirkland, Washington. Today I'm going to talk about the book Finding Junie Kim by Ellen O. The opening line from the book expresses a sentiment all students and teachers feel at the end of the summer. August is still the summertime. I tend to judge books by their covers, and this one does not necessarily match the book inside. This is a realistic fiction book with a time-traveling historical fiction inside. Here's how to talk about it with your students. Start by asking the question, is it better to confront a bully or just stay under the radar? That's the dilemma middle school student Junie Kim faces as she starts the school year. When her school is targeted with racist graffiti, Junie Kim's friends want to organize protests against the racism and discrimination that is plaguing their town. Junie, however, wants to avoid trouble. She's already facing increasingly hostile bullying about her Korean heritage every morning on the bus ride to school. Her friends don't understand her reluctance to protest, and Junie is left feeling alienated. As the situation continues, she even has thoughts about hurting herself. Fortunately, her parents intervene, and Junie gets some help to deal with these feelings and also how to face her tormentor. As all this is happening, Junie begins a class assignment to interview her grandparents about how they met and how they came to America from Korea. The story switches to the 1950s, and we and Junie learn about the deprivations, suffering, and violence her grandparents faced when they were Junie's age during the Korean War. Hearing these stories gives Junie some perspective on her own situation and the courage to stand up to the bus ride bullying, and also the courage to be open with her friends about what she's been experiencing. As you root for Junie and her friends, you'll also see how racism can impact a community, friendships, and mental health. A note for readers. While it's a very small part of the book, it is important to mention that if you or someone you know has thoughts about self-harm like Junie does, please contact a parent, a trusted adult, or you can dial 988 to connect to a compassionate, accessible care and support. Why I love this book? The multiple time frames are awesome. Narration switches between Junie's modern life and her grandparents' lives in the 1950s. Junie's family and friends in this story are amazing. A great story about the importance of community. I also learned about a time and culture that was less familiar to me. Who else loves this book? Well, it's a starred review on Booklist and School Library Journal. It's also an Asian Pacific American Award for Literature honor winner for 2022 and is a selection for the Project Lit middle school books in the year 21-22. Some points of inquiry. You can make connections with history and the history of the Korean War and immigration to the U.S. in the 1950s. Try the Library of Congress, the University of Washington's digital archives, and Seattle's own Wing Luke Museum for information and first person accounts. Family legacy is another point of connection. Be inspired to interview an older relative about their stories. The StoryCorps project is an excellent place to start. Explore and discuss mental health. Be proactive about negative feelings and the impact on you, your friends, and your community. The themes of discrimination and family and community run throughout this book. I hope you enjoy reading Finding Junie Kim by Ellen O.
As we wrap up the discussion of the individual 2024 middle school nominees, I want to share just a few more resources with you. The first is a practice I used when I taught English to students who learn differently, and one that I continue to practice now that I teach analysis of contemporary YA literature in the library. As part of their reading logs, I have students find quotations that provide evidence for specific contentions or arguments they make, and I require them to use the parenthetical citation. If you review the slide deck, the first lines of each of these books is cited using the MLA format. To create these citations, I used my favorite citation maker produced by the Oregon School Library Information System. This citation maker walks students through the parts and processes of their sources, then creates either a Word or Google Doc works cited page for them. When teaching parenthetical references, I will sometimes have students create their works cited page first so that I can then show them what part of the citation is used in their parenthetical reference. Our works cited slides are hyperlinked to the OSLIS citation maker. As a school librarian, I consider myself a conduit for knowledge rather than a repository. So anytime I can share something that is noteworthy with my teachers, I want to seize that opportunity. The next resource I want to share with you is the use of hyperrubrics developed by Tyler Raplin and shared at the Northwest Council for Computer Education conference in Tacoma. I love highlighting his work because he is relatively local, Sunnyside, just outside of Yakima, and has a book coming out that is going to explain what he described in 2 hours, but what I'm going to share in just a couple of minutes. In short, we are all familiar with grading rubrics. What he has developed as a national board certified teacher and, brave soul that he is, teacher of ninth grade English, is a rubric design that provides a roadmap of where students are going so that they can better understand the traditional rubric that is later used in summative assessment. I encourage you to visit his website to learn more about this. I got his permission to share some of his work with you in order to help you visualize what this would look like in practice. The first of these is a hyper rubric designed to help students understand the progression of skill development for an ELA standard in which students identify how characterization furthers the development of a theme. There are two features I would especially like to highlight. The first is the empowering language that is used in the progression rubric. The second is the hyperlinks that connect key academic language to YouTube videos explaining the concepts so that students can independently solidify skills that might be a little bit shaky. The second rubric that I'm sharing is incorporated in another extension that I'll be referencing in just a moment. We have two titles, Ophi's Ghost and When the World Was Ours, that are historical fiction. This has the potential for being a great connection to a middle school social studies assignment. Once again, I want to highlight how the progression rubric provides an opportunity for students to understand the skill as well as to really give them a chance to take a minute to read any author's notes that might talk about why the author might have changed key details. The next extension or resource is an advancement via individual determination or AVID strategy. The purpose of a one-pager is to force students to really distill something they have read or learned into a summary that can be easily recalled or discussed. As with some of the other resources I'm presenting, you are welcome to follow the link, which will take you to AVID's Open Access Resources page that has digital one-pagers listed under summative assessments. This one-pager is the wrap-up for our reader response theory lens. One-pagers provide a great deal of flexibility, are easy to grade, and can provide opportunities for focused conferencing. In the case of this one, my student was providing their take on one of the high school nominees, The Girls I've Been. They used visual representation as well as color coding to support their understanding of the theory itself, as well as their engagement with the book personally. The grading portion of the rubric is standard for each of the critical theory lenses I have my students use in my class, but the content is changed to reflect what knowledge I want the student to demonstrate. The rubric on this slide is hyperlinked, and you are welcome to use it and modify it as you need. The last resource I wanted to share with nominees is one that inspired the creation of an Evergreen passport that we are developing. Many times we think of gamification as a Kahoot, but in their presentation at NCCE, Sam Hartman, Lindsay Husted, and Paige Somoza shared not just the theory behind why gamification is so successful, they also provided some great resources for how they use it in their own classrooms in both high and low tech ways. One of the first steps they identified to gamifying activities in their classes and even in professional development trainings was to create a story idea around which to build the game. Again, check out their slide decks to see some of the truly fun ways they created story. In the spirit of creating story ideas, you could develop the "we're going on a bear hunt" into "we're going on a buck hunt" or a choose your own evergreen adventure. Through the next several months, we will be designing a passport for the Evergreen nominees that you can either choose to use as it is designed or that you can edit to meet standards or reinforce your school ideals. This slide shows how the social studies standard referenced in the hyperlink extension can be incorporated meaningfully into this gamification activity. In my case, RA Long High School, or RAL, has the ideals of respect, achieve, lead. So I may tailor our passport so that students identify and quote examples from the nominees that demonstrate a character who is showing respect, achievement, or leadership. As part of my school's participation, I plan to write a Donors Choose grant that will allow students who visit all the Evergreen nominees and have the stamp to prove it not only get a service to school point toward graduation, but also get the Evergreen nominee of their choice. Along the way, though, this passport provides space for students to rate the nominees they have read so they can eventually, drumroll please, vote for their favorite. The voting window for the Evergreens opens between March 1st and March 31st each year. Students are able to read and vote for their favorites on either list, regardless of their grade level. So, students who are needing something that is a little bit more innocent, even though they're high school, could read the middle school nominees. And students who are in middle school who are reading up are welcome to read and vote for the high school nominees or both if they choose. Ideally, students will have read at least 2 titles on the list for which they are voting, so they will have a basis of comparison. All voting is done at www.evergreen.org www.evergreenbookaward.org. Students have the option to access the ballot on their own, or librarians can enter tallied votes in locations where access to technology might be limited. Make sure that students who are accessing their ballot on their own include the name of their library. We do not have students enter their own names, so requiring the library allows us to weed out ballots for those who are just pranking. Finally, there are opportunities for you and your teens to engage with the Evergreens year-round. As a librarian, you are invited to join WashArg. Any WashArg member is able to participate in the Evergreen Committee, and it is an incredibly rewarding opportunity to collaborate with fellow librarians. The other opportunity does not require WashArg membership, but allows you to exercise your curricular chops, and that is to help us develop curriculum and resources for the new 2024 nominees. Teens have the opportunity to nominate titles, and then they are able to read along with the Evergreen Committee and provide their feedback about nominees that we are considering. We value teen insights, especially as we are making some of the tough decisions about what to cut in December and March. Okay, you've heard about the process, the nominees, the voting, and how to engage. All of my favorite workshops allow for audience participation or, even better, prizes. This year, Permabound has graciously provided the prize of one Evergreen nominee to 2 participants in this workshop. Here are the rules. Email me at jcruz@longviewschools.org. In the subject line, choose either Be the Queen of MS Evergreen or Winner Winner MS Dinner. It's important that you specify which prompt you are responding to, as well as that this is the MS list. In the body of the email, respond to one of the prompts. So if you are going for Be the Queen of MS Evergreen, either tell us how have you promoted the Evergreens with students and staff in the past, or what has inspired you from this presentation. In order to be eligible for the Winner Winner MS Dinner, share with us how you have engaged your users with voting in the past, or how you might engage your teens in voting this year. The first one to email me for each of these will be the winner. If you are the winner, I will respond to you and copy Patty Chumsland, our Permabound representative, announcing your win, and you and Patty will be able to decide which of the nominees you would like. If you're the winner, we'd love a selfie of you with your swag so we can post it to our social media accounts. If you're a winner who didn't happen to win the nominee, we'd love to have you tag us in your own social media accounts, sharing how you are incorporating the Evergreens with your teens. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this journey today, and we hope that you'll join us in the year ahead. If you have any questions or just want more information on getting involved, please don't hesitate to email me at jcruz@longviewschools.org.